Happy Friday afternoon, everyone. This is Cynthia Gartman with Seniors Blue Book in the South Central PA region. Several people on our call today are actually from the Pittsburgh marketplace, and we're so glad that you could join us. We're going to be making these training sessions larger and larger going across the U.S. in the not too distant future, and we're very excited about that. So, as I said, my name is Cynthia Gartman. I'm the publisher of Seniors Blue Book. And I am so excited to have with me today the Ledgerock Consulting group. They are, give me one second. They are Ronnie Fogelman, who is the founder and CEO. We have, she's waving her hands. We have Jody Ashley with us, who's the Director of Client Services, and Morgan Fogelman, who's Senior Consultant with the company. And we're just so excited. And now I see we have April Garrett, who is our Pittsburgh Seniors Blue Book publisher on. Hi, April. I talk to her all the time, but we never really get to see each other. So this is awesome. We do have a couple of folks that are still going to be coming online, and we appreciate you being here. We appreciate that you are willing to share your afternoon with us, be on video with us. And just a couple of housekeeping items. Obviously, I have turned my cell phone to mute because I'm terrible about that, and it always rings. So I would encourage you to do that or put it on at least vibrate. And then I'm going to be handing over the presentation to Ronnie Fogelman in just a minute. If during the presentation you have questions, we're going to ask you to use the chat box feature. And if you can remember, send the chat over to Jody Ashley or send it to everyone if that's okay with you, and she will definitely be able to get it. She's going to be our gatekeeper for questions and things like that as we go through the presentation. If there are questions that can wait, Jody, I think you're going to hold them to the end, but if they're really pertinent to whatever Ronnie's talking about at that moment, you're just going to break in and interrupt her. Okay. Well, you'll hear from me a little bit later, so I am going to hand it over to Ronnie.
Okay, good. So I think we're doing pretty good.
We're here. We're done.
Well, welcome, everyone. I'm very excited. I want to thank the Senior Blue Book folks, Cynthia and Chris, for hosting this for us. We're very happy to be able to bring you at least, hopefully, 90 minutes. We're going to keep it to the 90 minutes. And I wish I had time to talk to each of you and find out what you do and who you are and all of that, but we have a lot to cover today. I wanted to make sure I explain first that the session is about marketing. So you're not going to hear a marketing school book repertoire today. We're going to talk to you about what we've found in my 30 years of experience and Morgan and Jody's experience, what we have found that really works in some of our buildings and communities that we've been through, and some of the things that don't work. So we want to be able to share all of it with you. You may not agree with everything. You may hear something that you go, no, that didn't work for me, or I don't believe that'll work in my market. I ask you to just simply listen, take from it what you think will be valuable for you, and just give everything a little bit of breathing room so that you can try some of these new things and stretch a little bit with what we hear. Hopefully you'll have some questions, and once Jody has them, she'll bring them to me, or if we have time at the end, we'll do it then. If not, for some reason we don't have time, I'll make sure I get back with everyone with answers to your questions. So I'm going to share the screen now. Hopefully I can share the screen.
Want to make sure that everyone received their notebook that was sent out by email earlier today. Is there anyone that didn't get their student workbook? Awesome.
So tell me what you're seeing.
5.5 Marketing Essentials.
Okay, then we are ready to go. I have one screen with your pictures along the side and one screen that shows my presentation. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Let me kind of move this over here a little bit. So I want to make sure that we look at some of the essentials to marketing today as we go through this. And Ashley's trying to admit again. She must be having trouble with her laptop maybe. Can you admit her?
Yes.
Okay. So the very first tip that I have for all of you is we're going to talk about positioning, because so many of the things that happen in marketing happen around the goal of positioning who you are and what your building is able to accomplish and what you want people to know about you. And some of the greatest mistakes that we see sometimes are all around positioning. Things like this. So just take a few moments and let this kind of sink in a little bit. And you just kind of wonder, like the first one, for instance, clearly there was a group of people that made a decision to create that ad. So you're just wondering, what was their focus? What were they thinking of? What did they hope to accomplish? And then the second one with the Starbucks sucks truck or van, I'm sure no one thought to see what it looked like when they put it on the side of their vehicle. So really the planning and thinking about what you're going to do. And then the third one with McDonald's is just a really poor, a bad mistake and a very poor example of positioning. So the Webster's definition of positioning is the ranking or perception that prospects have of you and your company relative to competition. There's a couple very key words in this definition. One of them is ranking or perception. Either one of those words say to me, what does someone think of me? When they hear my name, what is it? What do they think about me? And the other piece that you want to look at is you and your company. This is not just say your company. This is about how you're perceived personally and how your company is perceived. And the third piece is relative to your competition. So remember that it's not just whether they like you, it's how you rate against your competitors. So they may think you're great because you bring them donuts or you come over on Valentine's Day with Valentine's candy. That's nice, they like you. But when they think about you compared to your competitors, what do they think? What is their perception? So remember that it's always far better to position yourself as, you know, the educator, a resource for your customers. You want them to think about you as an advisor, someone who comes to them with some new information, or they can actually see that when you come in, you bring them advice or you bring them strategy. And not being positioned as the salesperson. What I like about this particular quote is the last part, even in your own mind. It's really important that you think of yourself as an advisor, as an expert, and you do not think that you're just there to do sales calls. So that's the very beginning of positioning, is where is it ranking in your head, in your mind? What do you think about marketing and sales? So there's two different types. The first one is personal branding, and that's where you're attracting people to you or to your company through your positioning methods. So for instance, the advertising that we looked at, that's a way of saying, how do I position my company and through different methods. And then there's tactical, which is where you actually go one-on-one and meet with people individually. So both of these have to work together. And both of them should have consistent messaging. So whatever you're saying when you're talking one-on-one to your clients, you want to make sure that all of your marketing also carries the same message. You don't want conflicting messages out there. So I thought we would talk a little bit about each of these, because in the years that we've spent, Morgan and Jody and I and some of the other consultants, these are the kinds of things that we've run into in our communities that we've been working in. And Jody and Morgan, feel free to jump in if I've missed something. But these were kind of the top ones. The first one was too much cold calling. So I'm a proponent of cold calling. I really do believe that there's a value to cold call. When I was a regional, my salespeople were expected to do cold calls, but a percentage. So for instance, if they did 10 calls a week, 2 of those calls might be cold calls. But the purpose of the cold call was to get an appointment. You know, once in a while you got an opportunity to talk to someone, but you would not be prepared for that sales call. So it's much better to use your cold calling to position yourself as an expert, and that, yes, I'm here to see if I can get an appointment. The next one was too little prospecting. So a lot of people think that once you are in a role, or for instance, I take myself, how much of my time as the head of this company is spent prospecting? How much of my time is spent doing what I'm doing today? Today's what I love to do. This is the fun part. But I probably spend a great deal more time prospecting than I do getting to do this. Prospecting is a very, very important part of what you do to position yourself, to make sure that you've got a constant flow of business coming to your properties. It's probably the least, the job that people love the least, but it's really important that you do it, that you get out into the community and prospect. And that leads me to the market demographics. The market demographics help you to know where to prospect. Where am I going? Why am I going there? Who do I want to see? You have at your disposal a great many more demographics and data than I had when I was an admissions director. If you go to Medicare.gov, you can pull data about your hospitals, their average length of stay. You can pull data about your demographics of your market by income, by retirement, by their job sources. Just all kinds of data is out there for you, but you have to use it. You have to go after it, go find it, take it, sit down and study it a little bit and go through it. It's really important to help you with the prospecting part. And then, of course, there's advertising, which we just saw 3 pretty poor examples of advertising. But for us, for our industries, our healthcare industries, we don't have a great track record with advertising. We either are afraid of it, so we don't do it at all, or we spend a lot of our advertising dollars in the wrong locations. So remember that, and we're going to talk a little bit about advertising a little later in the presentation, but remember that advertising needs to be part of your plan. It's not a standalone. So if you're going to advertise and just throw an ad in the paper every once in a while, you're really throwing your money away. But if you look at advertising and say, I want this to be part of my plan. So let's say your plan in the second quarter is to do an event that you have a paid speaker for, and you're inviting the community. That's where you want your advertising. And you're gonna look at that advertising and you're going to decide, what do I want to use? Which kind of advertising do I want to use? But you're going to build it into your plan. So a poor use of advertising is where you just buy that little postage stamp down in the corner of the local football team's little calendar thing that they do. It's not a good use of your advertising dollars. That leads me to lack of focus. So very often, one of the things we see when we go into some of our communities is everybody's doing something different. So there's not a focused emphasis on what your goal is, what you want to achieve. You may have a goal, but is your goal the same goal as the executive director? Does the executive director have the same goal as your salesperson who's out on the streets? Or how about your clinical team? We all need to make sure that we're all focused on what we want to accomplish, especially in the next year or two. With everything we've been through in this industry, we're going to need to regroup. We're going to need to come back, pull together, and really focus everybody like a laser beam on what we want to achieve. That incorporates messaging. One of the things that you want to make sure we're looking at is messaging. What is your message? So when I look at the baby drinking the 7-Up, I'm like, wow, what was the message here? What was someone trying to get across to their to their clients or their potential clients. So really give that some thought when you're thinking about your marketing. What is the message that I want to send? How do I want to word that message? Where do I want to put the message? How do I get everybody in the building saying the same message? So I'll give you an example of poor messaging that happened with me when I was the admissions director of a building. This was a few years ago. When I gave tours through the building, I would stop and introduce my potential customer to the nursing staff. And I didn't do my homework. I didn't prepare everyone and make sure they were focused and they had a good message. And when I walked into the room, the nursing assistant was making the bed, and I introduced Mrs. Jones and said she was thinking of her father coming here. And she flipped the sheets up and said, "Oh no, not another one." And I'm like, okay, poor messaging, my error. It's our job, I think, as whatever your role is in the sales force, is to make sure that you help your people to understand how important that messaging is. Another thing that happens to us a lot is lead recovery. So I don't know what your systems are, but I'm going to bet that most of you have some type of a lead base, whether it's a CRM or you have a lead base that you use yourself. You probably have a group of inquiries or referrals or people that have toured, people that have come to your building that you put into what we call a lead base. So one of the things to think about is as we have in our company a lead-based recovery program. And one of the things that we found when we go in is sometimes the leads we find maybe 5,000 leads or 500 leads, and only a few of them are being worked. So one of the things to remember is that across the board in our industry, 90% of leads are unqualified. So they've been put in there, someone's toured or someone called for information and no one's followed up on them. Or they followed up on them once and then never followed up again. So 90% of leads are unqualified. And we also found that your sales, your closing, your move-ins, whatever you call that sale, goes up 20% when you qualify your leads in your lead base. So that's another piece of your positioning, because think about it. If you have 500 people that have contacted you and you never call them, how is that positioning you in your market? Because those people are going to tell everyone. I did a mystery shop for CCRC up in, I'm going to say Connecticut, I think, years ago. And I called and it was a telephone mystery shop. And that was probably at least, I'm going to say 7 years ago. And I still get information from that location. They have yet to call me. They just send me things, but they never contact me. They never call me. So make sure you're really looking at your lead recovery, because it positions you as a caring service provider. And then that takes me to your community. Your buildings, your communities are probably a very strong community component. You probably hire quite a few people in your community, and you're a very solid part of it. So it's really important that your administrators, your executive directors, your salespeople, everyone be involved in your community. You shouldn't be an island all by yourself. Are you part of the chamber? You know, are you out there doing speaking engagements? Are you presenting at local events? All of those things position you in your community as caring and as an expert.
3 minutes to get to the marketing planning slide.
And then we have lackluster, that was interesting. And then we have lackluster collateral. I'm not a big proponent of collateral. I think that a lot of it doesn't get used. It gets looked at once and then put away or even thrown away. But you have to have it. You just have to have it. And if you're going to do collateral, make sure that it shines. Make sure that it's great. It doesn't look like something you printed off in your building, because that's what's positioning you in your marketplace. So make sure that you at least have something very professional to hand out to people. It doesn't have to be, I had a client in Chicago who spent $19 a piece for each piece of their collateral. You don't need to do that, but you do need to make sure that it's professionally done. And the last one is broken trust. So I think this should be first on our list, because I think nothing will destroy you in your community or in your marketplace than when people don't trust you anymore. How do we do that? We do that by not taking our patients back, by changing our mind when we say we're going to allow someone to move in and then for whatever reason we don't. All of those things are very, very hard to recover from. So make sure that your word is very worthy in your marketplace. So just remember that trust is really important. It's much more important than being liked. I know we all want to be liked, and you will be, but you want your potential prospects, when you're positioning, to trust you. So I put this slide on here because I wanted you to look at the 3 ways that you can be perceived in your marketplace. The bottom one is product salesperson, then a business expert, then a strategic resource. So if you're viewed as a product salesperson, how do they see you when you come in? They see you as someone coming in to either ask them if they have a bed, ask them if you have any patients for me, do you have anybody that wants to talk to me? If you're viewed as a business expert, you're coming in with some information for them. You're going to educate them, or you've got something new to tell them. And then a strategic resource is when they trust you so much that they really want you to help them with a problem or an issue. So let me show you here. I'll put the first 2 up first. This is how we being the global we in our industry, all the salespeople, we tend to think of ourselves as either an order taker or a vendor. Both of those allow you limited access to the people that you need to speak with. So remember that as a vendor, you're selling something. But when you're going in and talking to people, you're not selling things. You should be viewed as the expert. So if you position yourself as the expert in healthcare or in home care or in medication management or whatever your industry is, be the expert in it and be viewed by them as your expert. And then finally, as a resource. When you're a trusted advisor, you're going to be asked to serve on committees, maybe be on a board. You're bringing value to them. So all of this is how you can be perceived in your marketplace. And this fun little quote is from a gentleman I worked with for many years at Manor Care. And I always like this because I think we forget that the most critical time to market is when everything's going great, not when we're already with 20 or 30 empty vacancies. So we want to make sure that we are out there when we're doing well as well. This is a fun list. I think this is in your workbook. So the only thing I want to point out on here is I want you to look at where advertising is. Advertising is number 10. Look where brochures or collateral is. It's number 12. And cold calling is number 14. So they did make the top 14 list of prospecting, but they're at the bottom of the list. The more important one is in the beginning, where you're speaking, being published, being out in the community, being active. All of that is really, really important. And I know we don't think we have the time to do it, but it is what will position you in your marketplace. Okay, that's, as I said when I started, we're really scratching the surface on each of these, just touching base with some of the key components that make these things work. So the second most important piece is planning. So once we know where we're going to prospect, we know what we're focused on, we know what our messaging is, now we have to plan how we're going to do it. So I want you to kind of think about, I'm sorry about that. This little thing does this all the time. There. A good plan violently executed today is better than a perfect plan executed tomorrow. And the reason I like that is we love plans in our industry. We do plans to do plans. So we're great at doing the plan. We're not so great at executing them. So a lot of it is because we want it to be perfect. Some of the plans that I've seen people do are 10, 12 pages long, and they're intricate, and they never get completed. So I'm going to ask you today, we're going to talk about plans, and I want you to think about how simple you can make your plans, because that's what's really going to help you get it executed. The very first thing that you have to do when you're starting to plan is set a goal. So if you haven't read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, I suggest you do. It's a great book. I think chapter 5 is start with the end in mind. So always start with where you want to be. Think about what your goal is, and that becomes your plan. So for instance, when I was an admissions director, our goal was private pay. The buildings, I had 2 buildings, and there were 2 things that they'd never been able to do. They were never able to fill both buildings at the same time, and they were never able to get over 50 private pay. This was before Medicare, guys. So I'm really dating myself here, but that was my goal. I had yellow stickies on my phone, stuck on my phone, that said 50 and 100%. That was the goal that I set for myself. Took me a lot longer than 6 months to get it done, but you'll get there if you can just make sure that your goals are really, really targeted. So let's look at a couple ideas of how we do a SMART marketing plan. So I'm sure all of you know what SMART is. It's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. That acronym, everyone knows it, and yet I still go in and find plans that have gross census. So that's not specific or measurable or time-bound. So let's look at how we do that. We can start by saying, where do we want to go? Grow census to 100. Well, what kind of census? How about if we grow total census to 100? Okay, no time bound there, not terribly measurable. How about if we grow total census from 90 to 100? We're going to grow by 10%. And finally, increase total census by 10% or 90 to 100 by November 30th. That is a specific, measurable, and time-bound goal. Here's another one that I see a lot. Develop physician relationships. It can be any kind of relationship. Develop community relationships. Develop religious relationships. That's a goal, a kind of a dream, not a hope, not really a goal. So let's modify it a bit. Let's say increase orthopedic referrals. Or let's increase referrals from the top 5 orthopedic physicians. I would name them so I know specifically where I'm going. Or how about referrals from the top 5 orthopedic physicians will increase from 5 to 8 by November 15th. Specific, measurable, relevant, and time-bound. Here's community awareness. And here's one I want you to think about. So if we say we're going to increase awareness in the religious community, we have to ask ourselves, as evidenced by what? So increase awareness in the Jewish community is evidenced by 5 referrals. I'd like you to give it a little thought and think about how you could make that better. What would you do to make that a specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound marketing goal? And the last one on here is maintain occupancy. Maintain was always a word that wasn't allowed to be in any of our marketing plans because maintain isn't growth. So just keeping, maintaining, staying, all those words are words that you really want to try to keep out of your marketing plan. You want to look toward where you want to be at the end of the plan. So here's an example of a simple map. Remember, there's a couple things you want to make sure that you keep in the front of your mind when you're creating a map. Where are we today? What do we need to do now to get to the goal that we want to get to? So let's say here's your 3 goals. I want to increase Medicare from 20 to 25 in the next 45 days. You can change all those words. Just they're interchangeable words. I can increase private admissions. I can increase occupancy in my studio apartments. Whatever you want to do, you just change the word. Make sure you have a growth from to and a time bound. And then maybe your second goal is I'm going to increase overall occupancy by from 90% to 92% in the next 60 days. And the third one I left blank because I want you to think about the fact that you don't always need 3 goals. You don't even need 2. Maybe you only have 1 objective that you want to meet. That's okay. Remember, we want this to be a simple 1-page plan. So how are you going to do it? That's the only next question. What are the things I'm going to do to meet the goal of this plan I have right here? So if I'm going to increase Medicare from 20 to 25 in the next 45 days, how am I going to do it? So you look down and you see there's 3 steps I put into place. I have a person that's going to do it, and I have a date they're going to accomplish it. If I'm going to do increase occupancy, I have 3 steps that they're going to do. They're measurable steps. Who's going to do it and by when? So I want you to remember that a SMART plan should still be a simple 1-page document that everyone understands. The map is a team effort. It's not one person. So the admissions person or the salesperson should not be the person filling it out. It should be the team, because it's going to take a team effort to accomplish whatever it is you put on your plan. Okay, so Cynthia, we're ready now, I think. I'm going to tell them a little bit about this. We're going to send you into a breakout room. Actually, there's going to be 2 breakout rooms. Cynthia, once you assign them.
They're already assigned,
Okay,
they're ready to go.
And all they'll have to do is accept it. Am I right?
That's right.
Okay, so the next slide I'm going to show you, I'm going to give you a scenario of your building or your community. And when you get to your breakout room, I'd like each of you, in the breakout room, you'll be able to talk to each other only. So I want you to choose a role that you want to play. You can be an executive director, a marketing person, a clinician, doesn't matter. Choose your role. Choose one person who's going to be the scribe and come back and present us your plan. And based on the scenario that I'm going to show you next, it's also in your workbook, I would like you to complete the map for the first quarter of 2021. And I believe Jody sent each of you a blank map form that you can use in your breakout room. And now, is there anyone who has any questions? I don't hear any questions. Of course, everybody's mic's off. Here's your scenario. So what's important to note here is that Happy Land has both a skilled facility and an assisted living. It's relatively new and it has a great reputation. So you can look here and see all the pieces of information about the SNF and the occupancy, what the hospital thinks of you, and the length of time people have worked here. And I'm going to let you all go to your breakout rooms now, and you have 15 minutes to complete. I'm going to go back to this previous slide so you can see it, to complete this exercise. Oh, wait, let me show you this one. This is the plan you should have in front of you that Jody sent to everyone. So hopefully you printed it off and you can write on it, or at least one of you can write on it and write your plan. You have 15 minutes to complete the plan, and then we're going to bring you back and have a discussion. Does anyone have any questions? So who would like to present the first group? Just tell us what your top 2 goals were, if you had 2.
Who's group 1?
I mean, I can go. Sorry.
Choose a presenter, right? Okay.
Well, we were in the middle of talking about one of our goals, so I'm going to present that one first. It's our 3rd goal. We came up with 3.
Okay, good.
I think go so fast.
So we were focusing on trying to combat the mentality that the hospital believes we cherry pick, and that the clinical team believes the hospital doesn't tell the truth. And the goal is to increase referrals 5% from that hospital in the next 30 days. The task or the responsible party is the new executive director, because she's only been with us for 4 months. So her and the admission/marketing person would do a presentation for case management or social work at the hospital within 30 days. Focused on that we can offer a continuum of care, because we have several lines of service. So we have skilled and assisted living.
Okay. Do you have another task for that goal?
Yes, I'm gonna go rogue team. So our goals all kind of mesh together a little bit because our other two goals were to increase the census at the SNF by 3 quality mix within 45 days. And our final goal was to increase census at assisted living by 3 in 45 days, with at least one of them being a direct admission from the skilled, so that we can display that continuum of care. And a task we were going to do for that was to schedule a follow-up or presentation for the DON and our rehab director to present a success story on someone from the hospital to just illustrate what we're trying to promote.
Okay, so do you see how complex this can get as you start to drill this down and try to really put some words around it? Because you could have written a book about that, Kara, on everything that you're, so it's really difficult, not difficult, but it takes a little effort for you and your team to kind of take all of that you're thinking that's rattling around in your head there and put it into very clear objectives for everyone. So good job. I'm going to jump over to breakout room 1 right now and see what they came up with.
Were we one? I don't know
Yes.
which number. Okay,
Yes.
sorry. I was a scribe, so all. So we have 2 ongoing with a 3rd goal. Our first one was to grow the census with referrals specifically from the assisted livings, trying to increase like some of that private pay percentage. And we were planning to do that by 3 residents for January, 3 residents for February, and 3 residents for March. So gradually over the year.
Okay.
And then our second goal was to grow the conversion rate with the number of people who are like referrals compared to the number of people who are actually admitting. And we wanted to grow that by 5%, which would give us 35% in January, and then another 5% in February, another 5% in March.
Okay. And for your first goal, can you give us one of the tasks that you had?
We didn't
Uh,
get that far.
We didn't get that far. Okay, that's okay. That's okay.
How about those goals? Those goals are incredible.
I was just going to say you've got really great goals. So, and I will bet you that it took a lot of discussion and tugging and pulling to come up with all the thoughts and bring them together into those 2 goals. So, so I have one question of both groups, and I don't care who answers me. Was this difficult or easy?
I think it was hard.
Okay, why?
Because you're almost working backwards. Like, you know what you want to do, but you have to like make a really good plan to do it. And that's not how I think most people operate.
Right. Good. Anybody else? Difficult or hard? I mean, difficult or easy?
Well,
Anybody?
as you can see, we didn't come up with really good a final plan. So I think that is the harder part. We could see where we needed to fix things, but
Now doing the tasks, each of the
Right.
individual. But remember, you're not going to do this in 15 minutes either.
right.
And you're going to have a team of people that sit down for hopefully at least an hour to be able to come up with some good goals. So good job, everybody. You did a great job. We're going to go back to our PowerPoint.
I have a question for the group.
Okay.
Is 30 days too short of a time?
Why didn't you ask it on the?
Because you didn't answer.
The group. From the group, you mean? Okay. So Jody has a question. Is 30 days too short of a time? I'm just going to give you my opinion. You may not agree with me. I think 30 days is very short. I think you really need to do quarterly, at least quarterly. In my experience, what I usually did when I was in administration we had an annual plan. So we would sit down like in November and put together a very cryptic annual plan. So first quarter, we want to focus on this. Second quarter, we're focusing on that. Third quarter, we're going to do 2 events a month. It was not specific. Then every quarter, we would sit down at least 2 weeks before the quarter starts and put together a quarterly plan. So that's what you'd be doing in like November, December. You'd be putting together a plan for January, February, and March. And then every month, the end of January, you have a meeting where you sit down and say, how are we doing? You know, what's our progress? Did we get the things done in January we wanted to do? Or do we need to move them to February? You know, is this didn't work, this did work. So it's a constant. I think just saying I'm going to get things done in 30 days is very, very difficult. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, so I'm going to, do I have to share the screen again, or can you guys see it?
You have to share it.
Share it again.
You have to share.
Yeah,
Okay,
you
here
need
we
to
go.
share it.
Oh, we're ready. Let me see if I can do this. I got to start it all over again, I guess. Are you seeing my little bug or
Yep.
whatever that
Yes.
whatever that thing is there that I'm not sure what it is? I mean, we'll get down here to discussion. Look at all we've covered so far.
Ronnie, it's a bee.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Oh, well, how do you know that? Oh, I guess it has little wings. Okay.
And it has stripes.
Right.
Okay. All right, good. All right. We're going to move on, guys. We're going to go really quickly through the rest of this now because I want to make sure we get it all in. I want to talk a little bit about roles and responsibilities. Sometimes that has a lot more to do with as we're getting ready to hire our marketing people. But I wanted to be able to talk a little bit about why certain people are really, really good at sales and marketing, and why some people love it, and why sometimes as sales and marketing people, we have a little bit of conflict with some of the other people that we're working with or with our clients many times. A lot of it revolves around our values. Your values are in place from the time you're 13. There are only 6 of them. They have been the same 6 since Socrates. They call them all different names as people start to market different products, but pretty much they're the same. So I want to go over what they are, and I want you to just kind of sit back and think about who you are and the people that you work with and some of your customers. So the first value is theoretical. Most people will have 2 of these as your driving forces. So that means that's what gets you up in the morning. You live for this particular value. Some people have only 1. Actually, a lot of people have only 1. Some people have 3. Very few people have 3. So what you're seeing here is the 6 that I'm going to talk about, and you just kind of think about them a little bit. So the first is theoretical. These are people who love to learn. They read books, some books 2, 3, 4 times. If you're on the high end of this, you're going to read the back of cans. There's going to be a lot of things going on like that. They just love to learn. So if you've got someone on your team and that's what they are, the people that love to learn, you assign them the job of doing that. If let's say you want to look at a new product, you want to put in a cardiac care unit, or you want to open up a new home care product service, you find the person that's theoretical and you give them that job to do. Go find out what we need to put together. So that's kind of who they are. In careers, they're very often professors. They very often have multiple degrees, masters, doctorates. That's who these people are. The second one is high social. A high social person wakes up every morning with one goal in life, and that is to make the world a better place. They want to make everything wonderful. They want it to be good for everybody. They want it to be fair. They want all of that. So if you're on the far high end of this, you're Mother Teresa. You'll give up everything to be able to make the world a better place. Now think about this. You might be high in one, but if you're high in one, you're probably low in the other. So think about the people that are low social. Doesn't mean they don't care. It just means that isn't what motivates them. So they may have a hard time understanding you if you'll give up everything just to make sure that somebody has a meal every day. That's who you are. So when you're meeting people and you're meeting clients and customers, you want to think about, from what they're saying to you, what they might be and how you may need to adjust your style or your value system to them. So the third one's aesthetic. I love these people. This is not me. I could live in a tent. These people love beauty, harmony. They love their lives are symmetrical. They like everything to be. I can always tell when I have an admissions person who's aesthetic, high aesthetic. I go in and they have pictures of everything, their kitty and their dog and their children, and they have flowers in the corner. They may even have a waterfall or a candy dish for everyone to enjoy. These are the high aesthetic people. So when people aren't aesthetic, they're kind of like, nah, I don't need to have the fancy stuff around. They have a hard time understanding those people. So you need to kind of think about that. The next one is economic. And these are people that are driven by money or reward. So it may not be actual money. It may be accomplishments. So they want everything. They're the drivers. They're the people that want to get things accomplished because it means it's a reward for them. These are usually salespeople, the high-end salespeople that sell the jets and all that kind of stuff. They are definitely high economic people. The next one is regulatory. Regulatory are people that love rules and systems. So these are people that the military, the police, clergy, people that love rules. They like things to be systemized. Many of our clinical teams are high regulatory. They like systems. They like to make sure the rules are followed. And along comes the high economic political person who never follows the rules. And that's usually our salespeople. And that's where we kind of get into a lot of kind of challenges with our clinical people, because the next one, which is political, that's my highest, recognition and power. So while I may not really care about what the salary is, I want the title. I want to be in charge of my destiny, and I probably want to be in charge of everybody else's destiny too, if you're the high end of this. So these are the 6 type of values. I want to give you a quick slide here and show you if I can get. Okay. Let me make this move here. I've lost my cursor. That's what I'm looking for. There it is. Okay. Most of you probably are familiar with DISC. If you've taken any of the personality or profile, if you've been on any dating site and you've taken any of them, they all follow a DISC format. So what that means is your 6 values drive your DISC score. So depending on what your value system is, it says whether you're a high director, dominant, doer, I want to be in charge, whether you're a high influencer, a talker, a convincer, a persuader, or maybe you're the high steadfast person, that's the high social, or maybe you're a high regulatory compliance person. So what I wanted you to see here is when you look across and you see over here where the high director is ambitious, pioneering, and strong-willed. So if you have this high score like this person has, which is 96, you're definitely ambitious, strong-willed, determined. What if your client, your potential customer, or your referral source is a low D? That means they're peaceful, modest, cautious, and agreeable. If you go in there with guns blazing, like we sometimes have a tendency to do, and they are a low D, which you'll know right away, believe me, you'll know, because they will shut you down. So it's really important for you to know, try to figure out the profile of the person that you're working with, especially if they're a referral source, or especially if they're a family member coming in. How do they sit? How do they, what are the words they use? Do they use words like, how do I feel? I kind of like the sound of that. Or are they, we need to get moving on this. I've got another appointment. You're going to know right away. And you, as the salesperson, it really is up to us to adjust our style to them. So how you position yourself in your community with your referral sources will benefit from being aware. Just be aware of what you think their profile might be. So here's just one of the ways I can show you the conflict. If you don't understand, this is only if you don't understand. Directors of sales have all of these components usually, all of these attributes. They're persuasive, competitive, they have a sense of urgency, they're resilient, you can knock them down, they get back up, they're ambitious and enthusiastic. That should describe your director of sales. Your director of clinical should be accurate, systematic, extremely confident, a steady Eddie, very trusting, and always use logic. What happens when these two meet? It's a conflict unless you as the director of sales understand that your director of clinical requires calm, accuracy. Don't come at them with all of the fluffy words because they're looking for steady, confident, and logical. So just a quick little touch again at the 360 level here to try to show you a little bit of how that positioning in your community helps you with your marketing. And then we're going to move to implementing. So 90% of marketing doesn't work because it never gets done. And I think we all know that if we are honest with ourselves about the plans that we do. And this is a quote from Neil Bradman from the University Center in London on genetic anthology. So his research and study has said that 90% of the plans we do never get accomplished. So I thought we would look a little, I keep losing my cursor, sorry guys. A lot of times things don't get done in our buildings, in our communities, when we put together great marketing plans and ideas because of our failure to communicate with them. So sometimes you'll hear people say, like if you're together and you leave a meeting, you'll hear people say, what was she talking about? What did she say? Or I don't understand what he means when he says those things. I just don't get it. Or you leave something and you're looking at a marketing plan, you go, I'm so confused. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Or don't they know how much work I have to do and now they want me to go in the marketing committee meeting yet too? Or how about I wish I would have known about this a month ago? Many times our marketing people don't involve everybody from the very beginning. So once you involve your team, you bring them together, you make sure they're all in on this together, then you won't have to say, I wonder how I'm doing, because you're going to be talking to them all the time. It's really, really important that we communicate like these teams communicate. Sometimes because of our value system, because of who we are kind of the guy that runs it alone. You know, we want to get out there and get her done. But we do ourselves a disservice and we do our communities a disservice if we aren't communicating. Make sure you bring your team along with you. Make sure that those folks know exactly what's expected of them. One of my recommendations with a marketing action plan is once it's completed, I think you should have a marketing committee meeting, and we talked about the time frame. You would sit down, put together the plan. You as the sales person, whatever your title is, if you're in charge of marketing and sales in your community, it becomes your responsibility to get that in writing. Just exactly what everyone agreed on, you get it in writing, and you make copies for everyone, and you take a copy to each person on your team and say, okay, thank you so much for being part of the marketing team. We're really looking forward to this plan working. And so I brought you a copy of the plan, and I've highlighted the things that you've agreed to do. So here you are, and we're going to check back once a month and see how we're doing. When you come to the next marketing meeting, please bring the plan with you. Here's another just a little tidbit. When you have your quarterly marketing meeting, and you're going to review how you did last quarter, did we make our goals? If people were responsible for doing things, go and ask them if they'll talk at the marketing meeting. Say, you know, Mary, you were instrumental in making that event happen. Would you mind at the marketing meeting just talking for a couple minutes about what your team did? You will be surprised what you will get from that. That thank you, that appreciation, that allowing them to present how they and their team were a help in your marketing meeting. One of the challenges I hear so often is nobody wants to be on the marketing committee. Nobody wants to do this. Well, they don't want to do it because they're not feeling valued. So know their values, know what matters to them, and provide it for them. That's your job as the director of marketing. As much as going out and doing whatever we do in the world, managing that team is as important because that's what makes things happen, the communication. Okay, so I want to touch base. How are we doing time-wise, Jody?
You have 10 minutes to get to Morgan. 5 to 10 minutes.
Oh, Morgan, I have 10 minutes to get to you.
Less than 10 would be better.
Less than, all right. All right, well, we're going to talk about advertising again. I'm only touching on some of the things that are kind of important to this. We could do a webinar, a 90-minute webinar just on advertising. Okay, so there's a couple types. There's institutional and there's product. Institutional advertising is used when you need to change your image or you need to create an image, like you're new, you just got to the community. You're going to do institutional advertising, very kind of matter of fact, to the point. Here's where we are, here's what we do, here's our name, and it happens routinely and over, so your message, consistent message gets across. Product is when you want to promote a new product, a new service within your already existing image. But again, please keep the messaging crystal clear. I'm not going to talk about social media other than to say I've heard that Facebook pay-per-click is probably one of the best ways to, if you're going to do Facebook, because you only pay when the user looks at your ad. So you're not paying for a general ad, you're only paying for, we suppose, interested clickers. So Morgan will talk a little bit about that. Broadcast, TV and radio, again, please be careful with TV and radio. They are very expensive. They have their place. There are times and places to use television and there's times and places to use radio, but they need to be part of the plan. Just the same with newspapers and magazines. They need to be part of the plan. So if you sit down annually and you say this quarter, each of these 4 quarters, we're going to do one advertising flight. And we want that flight to advertise a speaker that we have coming. And you plan it out. You make sure they're all part of what you're trying to achieve. Outdoor, billboards and mobile, another great opportunity for specific markets. I'll give you an example. We had an assisted living that was a brand new assisted living south of Washington, D.C., and they wanted to do billboards. Now, this was a beautiful property, and the billboards that they were able to get at a discount were on 270. If you know 270 in Washington, everybody drives 270 on the way home or on the way to work, and they're always in a traffic jam. So the billboard was right there. They had a chef who had worked at the White House. So those two things combined made a billboard perfect for them. But they're not perfect for everyone. I wouldn't put a billboard on Route 83. I wouldn't do that because people get, once they see it, they don't pay attention to it again. So be really careful when you're using anything like that. Mobile are the sides of buses, or the little insert inside the bus, or the taxi cabs. Again, depends on your market. Again, same message that you have in your newspaper, that you have on your radio, that you have in your social media. Your message is crystal clear, and it's the same message going out to everyone. I have 3 recommendations. 1, please be creative. There's nothing worse than an ad that shows a senior person sitting in a room in a skilled nursing center. I mean, come on, guys, let's be creative. really think through what you want to advertise and what your message is. I'm sure you've all seen GoPro, the GoPro ads. They were the first to do it, and they're wonderful because they show the person wearing the GoPro as he's surfing. So you actually get the user's experience through the ads. So be that creative, be consistent. Lego is probably one of the most consistent advertisers. They use advertising in newspaper or in magazines. They use movies. They have video games. They have toys. They all have the same message. So the consumer reads, watches, plays, and buys.
2 minutes or more.
Okay. So make sure I don't know why this is reverberating. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it's feedback. Make sure that your message is consistent across all lines. And the last one for me is dominate. I want you to listen for a minute to this particular ad.
I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed.
This logo is the most recognizable logo in the world. So that's a combination of, first of all, be consistent, be really creative, and make sure that your message is crystal clear. So that's kind of the piece on advertising. Now, I want to just talk for 1 minute about accountability, and then I'm going to turn this over to Morgan to talk about social media. But accountability, access and course correction to me mean accountability. So you have to make sure that no matter when people are held accountable for something, that they have clear expectations, that they have clear goals, clear communication, and that if you are the person responsible for them, if you are the supervisor, that you are course correcting all along the way, that you're in process review. How are you doing? How is that working for you? Tell me about that sales call you went on. What's happening with the marketing plan? Make sure that in process, if you're waiting to the end of the quarter, it's too late. It's already really too late to hold it, to assess how someone's doing and then of course correct. It needs to be done in process while they're in the sales or while they're in the marketing experience. Make sure you do timely evaluations. I can't tell you how many times I have gone into communities and said, well, let's take a look at your last evaluation. And I've been told they've never had one, or it's been 5 years, or, I mean, timely evaluations give you feedback. Everybody wants to know how they're doing, if they need to change something or do something differently, and they need to know they've gotten a reward. So make sure you're telling people when they do a good job and critique them when they need that, because that's what helps people to grow. So that's your assess and critique. If I can get over here. And now we're going to move to social media, which is my little half guy, my little half bug or bee over here. And I'm going to turn this over. Morgan, I'll move this next slide for you and you can take over, okay?
Yeah, that's great. Happy to be the 5.5th portion of what we're doing today. I don't even know how you say that, so I'll be brief. Although I could talk about social media for a couple of hours here. What I want to talk about is about 15 years ago, I did a presentation to a group of administrators on something called search engine optimization, which we've all heard of at this point. But at that time, the look that I saw from just about everyone in the room was, I would say, pretty much the look that I get from my 17-year-old son when I ask him to do anything, which is just kind of a look of lack of understanding of what I'm saying, which is understandable. I get that. We can't really afford in this day and age, though, to have that approach. We're years, decades into this now. We now know that social media is a critical component of how we reach our customers. And as we talk through this, not just how we reach our customers, but how we reach multiple different forms of audiences. So I want you to all think about your social media in this process. Take a step back. If you have social media accounts, which you most likely do currently, your communities do, I want you to think about taking a step back and asking yourself these 4 questions and then move forward with your process. The first one is, why are we utilizing social media? Are we doing it because everyone else is doing it? Or are we doing it because we see value in it? Now, we know there's value in it. If you don't see the value in it as an organization, that's where you need to talk to someone like us at Ledgerock, or someone internally that understands the platforms a little bit better, to understand how you can reach so vast an audience with such a simple tool. Once you figure that out, you want to get an understanding of what platforms you want to use. You can see here we put just a few of the big ones. Yes, I put Pinterest in there. Not many folks that we work with utilize Pinterest. I would say we could probably replace that with YouTube. But the big ones are, of course, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, especially for a lot of what we do, and Twitter. Although we don't get a lot of Twitter usage, we are pretty familiar with it. Once we have that down, we want to know who manages the process and flow. So I implore you, please don't give this component of your operation to the only person who knows how to use Instagram. Please make sure that you dedicate time and space and resources to bringing a person into your organization, whether it's a full-time hire, or if you don't have that, bring on a consultant to manage the process for you, because it is a difficult process to manage once you start to grow into multiple platforms. And then, of course, what is your consistent voice? So what is the branding that we're utilizing, and how do we keep it consistent? I can't tell you how many times I look at throughout the day different social media accounts, and it's just very inconsistent. The branding is off. Sometimes it's just a snapshot picture. Sometimes it's a really well done flyer. Sometimes it's talking about a hiring fair. Sometimes it's just talking about some random thought of what's everyone doing this weekend with a picture of Bruce Springsteen or something weird like that. So you want to make sure that the person you're working with keeps your voice consistent. So so what we utilize is a platform, a social media management device or system. And I would recommend that for every organization on this call. The most famous one now, in fact, I don't even know that there's much of a number 2 out there, is called Hootsuite. So you would want to make sure that whomever you're working with, or the individual you bring in, is Hootsuite certified, and they at least have a moderate amount of knowledge in Hootsuite. What Hootsuite does, for those of you who aren't aware, is it takes all of your platforms. Let's say that you have a Facebook account, a LinkedIn account, and let's throw one more out there. Let's say you have a YouTube account. What you can do, instead of going into each of those 3 and posting and updating and responding to messages and responding to likes and comments, Hootsuite or a similar SMMD is going to give you the ability to, or your social media marketing specialist, the ability to post to all of those on one platform and have an inbox of information coming in. So I skipped ahead a little bit, but once you've answered the initial 4 questions, you also want to look at the frequency of posts, how often you're posting, what days are going to reach the right audience, what times are going to reach the right audience. There's a science behind it. It takes a simple Google search to inform yourself on that. I implore everyone to schedule your posts in advance. Don't, again, when you utilize a platform system, a management system, it's going to give you a calendar that allows you to post things out in advance the entire year, and they just automatically post for you, which is a really nice luxury to have. And then you're just going in and looking at responses. And then you need to have a system in place. If you don't want to use a big platform, that's fine, but you need to have a system in place or an individual who responds to your shares, your likes, your comments, your direct messages, both good and especially bad. So like I said, I could talk for hours and hours on social media. Jody and I work together to manage the social media for Ledgerock and for some of our other clients. It's been very, very successful doing it that way. But again, it's because we keep things very consistent and very, very organized. So hopefully we get some questions for social media. love answering them. But with that being said, I'll turn it back over to Ronnie.
Okay. Thank you, Morgan. Yeah, social media can be challenging for our industry. I think we were late getting into the game. We kind of kept saying it wasn't really that important, or we would give it to the activities director to just go into Facebook once a day. And it's much more complex than that. And it's very valuable, and it's going to get bigger. Morgan, do you know the new platform that they're talking about that will replace Twitter, and it starts with a P? Anybody know it? It's like pre something. It's a brand new platform. They're going to challenge Facebook and Twitter. If you're talking, Jody, your mic's off. She doesn't know. She doesn't know. Your mic is off.
It's called Parla.
Yeah.
P-A-R-L-O-R or something. P-A-R-L-A.
Yeah. And it's just check it out, because it's a brand new, they do absolutely no qualifying, I guess would be the right word to use. So just check it out. It's just, I want to go in and kind of move around in it and see what it's all about and if it's worth it. So that's our social media. This is what we've gone over today: positioning, planning, some of the roles and responsibilities, how to implement your marketing plan, how to make sure you're assessing and course correcting, and then of course, social media. So, this is my blatant advertising for Ledgerock. These are just some of our consultants and some of the trainings and things we do. Jody's coaching here an external salesperson, and here she's coaching, I believe, an admissions director. This is one of our trainings that we do. This is part of our team. This is what we use for hiring and, of course, speaking. These are some of our clients. We're in 13 states. So some are from different Chicago and all over the place, I guess. So just some of our clients. Here's some of our programs. I think this is in your book. So, the only one that's new, we added social media strategy because we can do customized plans for you now. So that's pretty much it. We thank you very much. And Cynthia, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
I appreciate it very much, Ronnie. Do we have any final questions for Ronnie? I've been watching the chat, so I don't know that we've had any come over there. But any final questions? You should be able to unmute yourself. I've been going through and trying to hit the unmute button on everyone. So if you want to ask a question, we want to encourage that.
I just would like to thank Ronnie for doing this. But I also have some questions about thinking outside the box when so many of us return to marketing in the field during COVID. If Ronnie can shed any light on any talk that's been flying around in the marketing industry.
Thank you for that question. And it's, Don, I mean, it's extremely important right now for people. Everybody's very worried about this. I see my sunshine's coming in here. I think that we're going to need to be very careful. I think we're going to need to pivot. I think Jody will tell you that I was very adverse to virtual sales training. I fought her every step of the way because I love to be in front of the group. I love to be right with them when they're doing things. But we needed to do that. We needed to change our style. We needed to put together programs that we could do virtually and feel good about. And I think that's what we're going to have to do as you guys get back out into the marketplace. A lot of what you're going to do is going to need to be done over Zoom or, and you do get kind of comfortable with it after a while. And first it's kind of uncomfortable. And, but now we do a lot of our meetings over Zoom with new clients and new customers. Anybody else have anything you want to add? Anything that you think will be helpful?
I miss that feel you get when you get in front of somebody, when you're sitting in their office, you're looking in their eyes and you're sensing what they're feeling, and you're looking around the room and you're picking out things that are important to them that you can tuck in your pocket to utilize then the next time you're going to see them, whether it's a coffee they like or something. And it's hard to have that kind of human connection through social media.
Yep.
It just seems
I think-
difficult. And that's the hardest part for me to get used to, because I'm one of those marketers that goes on feel and sense and emotion. And
Well, I think we're going to have to be a lot more verbal in the future. I think we're going to have to, instead of going off the vibes in the room, and I don't know, Ronnie, if you agree with this, but I think we're going to have to get better at communication. I think we're going to have to get better at the ask. Instead of going down our laundry list, I actually find that I think I'm doing a little bit better on sales calls virtually than I did in person. When I was in person, and when I still am in person, I feel the need to almost rush myself and not have a conversation. But what I've noticed lately is that I'm giving them more room to talk. And that's really the thing we want to be doing in sales.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe it curbs our need to talk and allows them to talk more.
Yeah.
That's a good point, Cynthia.
Yeah. That's a great point, Donna, but I do think it's going to call on us to be different.
I think one day we'll be able to all come together in another virtual meeting and share some really great success stories on
Could be.
virtual meetings.
Yeah. Any other questions? Because I know that we're out of time. I'm glad that this has been engaging, and I certainly want to keep us going if you're interested, but I also want to be faithful to those that need to do those last minute Friday things before we head for the weekend. I see Kelsey's shaking her head yes.
Yeah, 90 minutes is a long time to be on Zoom, so, yeah. Well, I appreciate it, everyone.
Yeah, their contact information for everyone is in the workbook and or the emails that you've gotten for this. So don't hesitate to reach out to Ronnie, to Jody, to Morgan, myself, however we can help you, to April. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.